Happy Mother's Day, my positive moms. And I'm saying Happy Mother's Day, but you'll see what we're talking about. It's everything but happiness. And because of that, I have a dear friend and fantastic expert in loss. Her name is Yorona, and she's going to talk to you about herself in a second. But let me just say that I'm so happy that you're here because this conversation is so important and we need to be having these types of conversations. So, Yorona, my love, can you introduce yourself to our positive moms today and
Sure.
anything you want to say?
Sure. My name's Yorona Boster, and I'm a life coach. My specialty is in parent coaching, loss, trauma, and infertility. I've had an excessive amount of loss in my life and 10 years of infertility struggles. And I know the ups and downs of that very, unfortunately, intimately. The loss of children, the loss of my parents, the loss of my niece, the loss of my nephew, the loss of friends, family. And it's given me a different take on how I approach motherhood, but also how I keep living with all the losses in my life and living fully, because I think that's really important.
Yeah.
Grief is going to be a part of the cycle and it's natural. And for me, that means that we need to be as present in every single moment that we have in our parenting and in our place as well in relation to our parents as a child.
Thank you so much. Yes, Yorona is a true expert in the topic, and you can find her TEDx talk about loss on YouTube. I don't know that there are many Yorona Busters on YouTube, so you will find her, and I will link it also and pin it in the comments. So, thank you for introducing that because it's really real. It happens to all of us. I always say that pain is the common thread of humanity, and loss is part of that thread. So, how did you get started on this journey? Like, what sparked that desire for you?
If I'm honest, it's always been a part of my life. My father was a Holocaust survivor, and I grew up from a very early age understanding that loss, pain, all of that goes hand in hand with living. My parents didn't try to shield us from it. When you grow up Jewish, you actually grow up with the knowledge that there are some real cruel people out there. But you also grow up with the knowledge that there are some people who are miraculous just in the ability to be human and to love beyond themselves. And I wouldn't be sitting here today if it weren't for the love of complete strangers that helped my father survive. So having that awareness at an early age changed the way I looked at living. And at every turn, when something happened to me, I went through the suffering, the pain, the trauma, but I also tried to look at it from the bigger picture. We often ask ourselves, why? Why is life unfair? Why does there have to be loss? Why does there have to be pain and suffering? The thing is, if we struggle so hard to look at the reason for the why, we miss all the amazing things around us. And we let some of the most beautiful things pass us by. So when my niece died first. My niece and nephew were severely disabled. So when I started college and my niece was born, we didn't realize that she was disabled right away. We started to see some issues. And over the course of years, we realized it was a rare genetic disorder. My sister went ahead and had my nephew, and they didn't even realize it was genetic until he was born and was showing signs of global delays as well. And my niece made it to the age of 14, and it was a pretty painful life she lived. Both of my niece and nephew were non-walkers, non-talkers. And again, that loss of their inability to do certain things was, in my mind, counterbalanced by the moments of beauty that we had with them. My niece had 2 words: I go. And she knew where the malls were in a 50-mile radius, every single mall in a 50-mile radius of her home. So we would be on our way to like a doctor's appointment, and she'd be like, I go. And I'm like, we're not going to the mall right now. We're going to the doctor. So there was, and I could choose to focus on the pain of her loss, which was pretty painful and pretty freaking awful. Or I could choose to remember those beautiful moments with her. She loved Blue's Clues. She loved all the villains of any Disney story. She loved Cruella de Vil. She loved all the villains. She would crack up at the villains. So she loved them. So, I mean, she just had such a humor. My nephew was this angel, and he couldn't speak, but the coos you would get out of him when you would give him kisses, like the like the love, the beauty of his soul was something so amazing to behold. My father, with 10 years of cancer, that was an in and out situation of a lot of difficulty. And the last part of being with him was hard because I became his caregiver, and, having him take his last breath with me right there, caring for him, was definitely a moment in my life that is forever stained on my soul. But also, vividly, I remember him climbing the apple trees in the orchard when we were going apple picking. And I have this awesome picture. He was on chemo, and he's in a tree with his hat, his little cap on backwards with his camera, giving me the cutest smile. My friends used to call my father Mr. Miyagi because he looked like him, this little tiny wizened man. And he always had something to say. And sometimes it was something you didn't want to hear, but he always had something to say. And my mother was a fighter to the end, always looking for ways to live life to the fullest. I was just telling somebody the other day, when my sister and I were with my mom in Arizona going to see my cousin who was getting married, we drove up to the Grand Canyon. And talk about a moment of stopping and smelling the roses. My mom decided to pull over, and she was determined to get a picture of a bee landing on a flower. And it took about 20 minutes. And we're standing there like, can we just go already? And my mom was literally determined to get this picture. And we're like, you always have to stop and take a picture of the roses, don't you? And those moments, we don't, I say this all the time to people, we don't get a choice always in what happens to us. Sometimes we don't even get a choice about how we feel about it, but we can choose how we want to respond to it. And that actually can change the way we feel about it too. I'm not saying to cover your pain. I'm not saying to cover your sorrow, your grief. I cry. I bawl my head off when I think about Danny and how he didn't have a long life, and his children are going to live the rest of their lives without him. And it hurts my heart, and I will bawl my eyes out. But then I will choose to remember some of the moments in our childhood, like that time he got a Lego car stuck in my hair and my mom had to cut it out. And she was like, the trouble he would get me into. My goodness, we got into a lot of trouble together, but like, that's the thing. We get a choice in what we want to bring back to life. And that's how we move forward with loss.
Yeah, I love that. It's really beautiful. Thank you for sharing that, Yorona. What you said reminded me of actually a Holocaust survivor named Viktor Frankl. And his books are just gold, I would say. And he has a saying or something that he said that I always talk about. he says that between the stimulus and the response, there's a space. And in that space lies our freedom and our power to choose our responses. And in our responses is where the growth and the freedom lie. And I love that because you said we don't get to choose what we think. You said what we feel about it, what happens to us. And yet there is a space that we can choose to respond. It is a very conscious space. So, we definitely have to be in a certain state to be able to choose that. So I really love that. What you said is beautiful, like choosing to remember people by the memories we have of them, which really leads us beautifully into this topic of loss in motherhood, because we don't have any memories most of the time, and a lot of people don't even know how to talk about miscarriage, how to talk about infertility, which, that there may not be a baby to mourn. It's just the thought or the idea and the desire of a baby, or, a stillborn. Like, how do you move forward when you don't have those moments to go back and see, think about the Lego and think about the bee and think about the orchard? What happens when you can't really hang on and all you're thinking about is, I didn't get to do that?
Yes. So this was really hard for me. Even my first ectopic pregnancy, because my ectopic pregnancies bookended my 10 years of infertility struggles. I still remember, even though my life was a complete mess at the time, I still remember saying, isn't there any way we could, transfer it? Not understanding what an ectopic pregnancy was. But the idea of that child started to percolate in my brain before I realized the danger that I was in. Sometimes the idea of something is enough to create hope. And that hope can crystallize into something more tangible if you're willing to be imaginative. People who have had miscarriages, ectopic pregnancies, the loss of an adoption not happening, the loss of an IVF cycle, all of these things. What happens in the space between the possibility and the loss is hope. And that hope can grow in and of itself and be a catalyst for change. But you have to make it something more tangible, because more often than not, we create the tangibility of the loss because it's something we experienced. Whereas hope is a little less tangible because it's not something we've experienced. It's just something we feel. So I say, make hope tangible. And sometimes, and here's the way we do that. When we lost our IVF cycle, so we tried to do IVF after my mom passed away, we spent $20,000 and we got 4 embryos, but they were all abnormal. Abnormal embryos means that I would have miscarried every single one had they transferred them. Luckily, we did the testing on them, the chromosomal testing. So we found that out. I lost that potential, right? The potential here and the loss here were all I could think about. And then I said, but what about the hope? What do I do with that? And I decided to find a support group. And I found a beautiful support group with Resolve, which is the National Infertility Organization. And they're a beautiful nonprofit organization dedicated to helping people with infertility. And we have tons of free support groups. So just FYI, keep that in mind for anybody listening who's going through infertility and feels extremely isolated and alone. Because let me tell you something, where we stand right now, the World Health Organization just came out with the statistic that 1 in 6 people will experience some form of infertility. 1 in 6 globally. That is huge. But people experiencing it feel like when you experience something, everywhere around you tends to be the opposite because you're struggling with that experience. It's like, when you just had a car breakdown, you suddenly see everybody else's wonderful cars. When when you just lost a pregnancy, you suddenly see pregnant people everywhere. So what I did after I found this support group and started sharing my experience, that's really important. Find a community of support who get it. They understand that. But then I decided, I can't help myself, but what can I do with this? What can I do with this helpless feeling? I can help others. So in the moment that you feel most helpless to help yourself, go out and help somebody else. Because maybe in that support moment, their hope will crystallize into something bigger than them. So I took my hope for a better world. I took my hope for a world where we're supporting each other, where we are giving each other meaning. And I went out and I helped other people. And now that's what I do. That's one of the things I do. I go out and I run infertility support groups. I do advocacy for legislation around infertility. And I hope that gives more people support so that they never have to feel that hopelessness.
I love that because, one thing that resonated with me was finding a support group and finding people who get it, because a lot of people don't get it. And, a lot of people had not experienced it, so they're really unable to get it. So, but first, let's talk about this because, I want to paint the picture here and normalize that sometimes you don't really have the strength to help each other. There's a space there. And so was there a time where you couldn't even get out of bed? So let's talk about that. Before you took action, which is, a really awesome vision for everyone who's listening, getting involved and kind of finding closure in that. Before that, what are some of the little steps that you took to get yourself back into a baseline of, I can live with this?
Yeah. Oh man. Was not easy. When I had my miscarriages, one of my miscarriages happened when I was 11 weeks along, and I had just decided that, my mom isn't going to survive this. And we decided to bring in hospice, and I started caring for her in her home. It was one of the hardest moments of my life because I just lost my child and I'm losing my mother. When I lost my mother, I was like, what? And yeah, I had moments where I was just like, I was determined to just lay in bed and stay there forever. But then I said, and again, I go back to if you can find one little reason, it's one step, not 100 steps. It's one step. Okay, you know what? Today, I'm just going to take a shower. Today, I'm just going to indulge in an entire carton of ice cream today. And then in those moments, I started to notice the pleasure of the shower and not just showering for the sake of the shower. And when that would happen, I'd grab onto it like a lifeline. And even though it was this small, little, tiny thing, oh, the water's warm, I started to pick that up. Okay. Even though then I went back to sleep. But there was a moment, like a little tiny light in the dark days. And then and here's the thing. So everybody understands, after that failed IVF, and I found the support group. That support group, just getting out of bed to go to the support group was a lifeline, because here were other people who got it. Here was somebody else who was crying and bawling and trying to figure out where the heck they go from here. And I realized I wasn't alone in that darkness. Yeah. So then the awareness that, okay, this darkness is not just in me. This darkness is not just surrounding me. It's surrounding other people. And there was another little moment of light. So when you have moments of light, you have to shine it harder. And it's hard. It is so hard, because here's the thing. Then my husband and I decided, well, we're going to buy a house. So then I got invested in doing something other. So one of the other things is distraction. You could choose to sit there and just feel miserable, or you could distract yourself. So I started watching funny movies. I started saying, like, this feels great. I'm distracted by this. And I'm going to tell you this because it's important, I even relished the moments when I went into a store. This is going to make me sound horrible, but I would go into a store and I would see a child laying on the floor, screaming their bloody head off, and the mother's look of just like, I can't. And I would relish those moments of, I know it's mean to say this, but it helped me, because selfishness is not selfish if it's self-protection. And it helped me protect my heart by saying, you know what? It's not all sunshine and roses being a parent. And that helped me get a little bit of perspective on that moment. Parenting is really hard.
Yeah.
Really hard. It's not all sunshine and roses. And when I was able to move away from the sunshine and roses part, then I started to see more moments of like, oh, I can appreciate the fact that I can come home from work and have 3 glasses of wine and be a little tipsy and just relax. And there's nobody trying to get my attention or make me be responsible for them. And, so yeah. I know it, again, I know it sounds bad, but it's perspective taking. It's moments to cherish the things you have. And even if you can't cherish the things you have, not be as jealous of the things other people have that you don't. That helps me be less jealous. It helps me be less, helps me put that in its place, that it's not all a beautiful thing.
Yeah.
And yeah. So that helped.
Yeah. And I really like the perspective that you found healthy ways to cope with it and to distract yourself and really to entertain whatever helped you move forward. You gave yourself permission to do that, and you're giving yourself permission right now to talk about it. Yeah. So I think, that's one of the issues that I'm most passionate about. I would say eradicating from the planet is that sense of shame, because it's important to know that coping mechanisms are what helps us survive. And so I love that you brought that up, because no matter what it is that you are using as a technique to stay alive, to function, that's, definitely valid and useful. You weren't hurting anyone. That would not be helpful. No. You weren't hurting yourself. So outside of those boundaries, of hurting, whether it's emotionally or physically or in any way, but when you are using this technique to reassure yourself and not judging yourself for it, I think that's a very gold nugget that I want everyone to look at, because we need to find a way to reassure and validate ourselves. And validation, it's really why I'm on the planet. So I really love that you model that for us. And it's okay to have parts of you, because it's not the whole, right? It's just one tiny part who's like, oh, I'm glad I'm not there. I'm glad this is not my situation. And that doesn't really mean that there's not a part of you that still desires that child.
Absolutely.
There are many parts of us, and all parts are welcome, Absolutely. And all parts are valid.
Yeah.
All behaviors are not.
So important. Judgment and shame, self-judgment and self-shame are so detrimental to your growth and progress as a human being. Because here's the thing, we all make mistakes. We're human. That's part of being human. It's what we do next that comes and is important. So as long as you're not hurting yourself, as long as you're not hurting somebody else, You can think thoughts. Those thoughts aren't going anywhere but in your own mind. And sometimes in your community, you can share them so that other people know it's okay not to judge themselves for those feelings as well.
Yeah. Yeah.
Also, and I say this to my group all the time, self-protection is not selfish. So here's the deal. This is really important. If you get invited to a baby shower and you're experiencing pregnancy loss, you're experiencing miscarriage, you're experiencing stillbirth, you're not able to get pregnant, you're struggling through infertility, don't go.
Yeah.
And I know I'm giving you permission, don't go, because here's what you can do. Send a wonderful gift and say, I'm so sorry, I'm not going to be able to make it. Here's why. That person is going to have lots of people there. Now, unless there's a circumstance where you're literally the only person that's celebrating with them.
Yeah.
More often than not, when somebody invites you to a baby shower, there are tons of people there who are so happy and thrilled for that person. But if you go and you're miserable, there's a thing called the emotional contagion.
Mm-hmm.
Your misery, despite how much you try to hide it, will come out, and it will put a damper on the celebration. So think of it like you're helping that person by protecting yourself from flaying yourself. You don't have to flay yourself alive for somebody else's happiness.
Yeah.
Support yourself in your pain.
Yeah.
Because that's really important.
And I want to add, Yorona, that it's okay to say, I don't want to go. Yeah, we don't have to make excuses for our pain and say, you know what? After the loss of my pregnancy or my baby or the process or the adoption fell through, whatever it is, I am not in an emotional place to be there for you. Mm-hmm. How can I do it differently? I think that it's important that we start saying it. It takes the awkward out of it too, and the mystery, because when you say, I'm not going to be able to make it, everybody knows why.
I'm going to tell you this though, caveat here. There are a lot of people who experience infertility who choose not to share it with anybody. Yeah. And they're afraid of judgment.
Oh, I love that.
So keep that in mind, that sometimes people there are not going to know. But I'm going to tell you this too. If you choose to go, nobody questions stomach issues. So if you go and you're having trouble, run to the bathroom and then come out and say, I'm so sorry, I'm going to have to go. I'm having some issues. Because, and this works, I kid you not, because, and I know it's a little silly, but it works because, again, you need to be in self-protection mode. But I agree with you. When it comes to close relationships where that person knows your struggles, there's no shame in sharing. I am sorry. I'm so struggling hard. I want to be able to support you, but it's going to rip me apart. Yeah. To support you in this moment. So how can I support you elsewise? Yes.
I love that so much. Yeah. And let me ask you this. When someone chooses not to disclose, when do you think, or how do you think they can then get it out and start healing from it? Because I'm a very big proponent that silence promotes shame and suffering. And so what is of course, it took me like 20 years to share some of my painful stories with the world. But with close people, with people that you see every day, especially because it can be very debilitating if, let's say, you're going to work, you're not close with everybody at work, but they don't know how to be mindful of your situation because you haven't shared it. So tell me more about that.
Oh God, there's so much here, because here's the thing. We want people to react with the best of intentions, but I cannot tell you countless stories that I've heard, and myself as well, some serious cruelty. Just in the not understanding, there has been some serious cruelty, but even people who supposedly understand can be extremely cruel. After one of my miscarriages, I shared it with somebody who I thought would be understanding, and she's like, oh, it's no big deal. I had 5 miscarriages between my kids. And I was like, so you just minimized my pain and suffering. I had other friends who, like one person who he would go to his office, they had a wall of babies, and he and his wife were suffering and going through infertility struggles, and his wife almost died, and they were trying to deal with a whole slew of things. And this wall of babies that everybody would share, whether it was their babies, their grandbabies and stuff. And he went to his boss and said, is it possible to maybe take the wall down for a little while? And the boss was like, why are you putting a damper on everybody else's love and joy and appreciation? So I'm going to tell you this quite honestly. There's a lot of cruelty out there from people you expect not to be cruel. So when we get burned like that, it's harder to share. So the first place you want to go is a place of support. That's why I say go to a support group of people who get it, because they're not going to say stupid stuff like that. But caveat to this, there are some Facebook groups that can be extremely toxically positive. So go to a real support group with real people, with real sharing.
Love it.
Okay. That's really important. Number 1. Number 2, choose carefully who you're going to share with, one step at a time. If it's a family member, start by dropping little hints that things are difficult and see how they respond to that. If they respond with support and understanding, then and you can start by saying, I want to share something with you, but I don't want you to fix it. I just need somebody to hear me out. Really important, because when you're suffering, people who love you want to try to fix it. So they're like, well, did you try this? Did you try this? Did you? And they don't understand how minimizing that is, because you're the one dealing with it. So of course, there's probably tons of things you've tried. Like, well, did you try standing on your head again with your legs up against the wall after, doing the deed? And it's like, have you eaten mangoes for 10 days straight? The things people say. And again, they're coming from those people are coming from a nicer place, but sometimes people can say really cruel things. So that is one of the reasons why when you get burned, it's hard to share. So share first with people who are going through it. They'll be the most supportive. And when you get that window, you start to learn different ways that different people have shared at what might work for you. Yeah. And I will tell you one thing too. In one of the hardest moments of my life, when I had that 11-week miscarriage and my mother was dying, I had somebody close to me tell me, well, children shouldn't define you. And she was successfully pregnant at that time and carrying to term. And I did not need to hear that from her. But years later, I heard something different, which helped. After my husband and I bought our house, I was pregnant again. And I said to my husband, oh, probably going to have another miscarriage, whatever. I don't want to go to the doctor. It turned out to be another ectopic pregnancy, and I almost lost my life. And I lost my right fallopian tube. And after that, I had a conversation with my sister that changed my life. So maybe it'll help for you too. Some people feel that their children are their purpose in life. And my sister said, a lot of parents get it wrong. Your kids aren't your purpose in life. You, as a human being, and she didn't say it exactly like this, but I'm caveating it. You as a human have a purpose. With or without children, you have a purpose for being here. So find that purpose. And if you get the blessing of children, you're just going to be there to guide them to finding their purpose. That's your purpose as a parent and in a role of parent. But find your purpose with or without your children. Because when you could find a purpose, your life has much greater meaning. And the children are just an extra wonderful, beautiful blessing. And then you can appreciate them for who they are, what they are, and also give them the room to be their autonomous selves. And that's how I choose to be moving forward with my son, because I know how important it is. I have a purpose here. And once I realized that, I let go of the idea that maybe I won't be a mom to my own child, but maybe I could figure out how to be a mom to more people in the world.
Yeah. Yeah. I always say that mothering is a verb.
It is. It
Yeah.
really is.
I really love what you shared because, invalidation is really the biggest barrier to vulnerability. When we are invalidated, we back out and shut down.
Oh, yeah.
And not only from the people that invalidated us, but from the world at large. But when we find that person who is validating, then we are able to share more. And that's why I love the support group that you mentioned, because these people are are creating a space in an environment where validation is practiced. And one thing that I really want to say is that the this day, the ads, the media, the articles, the cards, everything is invalidating for people who have experienced pain in motherhood. When that flies,
that fly really likes you. What's up with the fly?
Well, she's trapped in here, so
she's like, I like what you're saying. Keep going.
So this holiday is so invalidating for people, whether people that have experienced the loss of a mother, or the zero connection with a mother, the estrangement, or maybe abandonment, or maybe abuse of a mother, and those who are in the space of, I wanted to be a mother, but I didn't, or I wasn't, or I tried and it didn't work, quotation mark, right? Because it's not something that needs to work. Or I conceived, but it didn't progress, or I had my baby and he couldn't progress, or she or they couldn't progress, or I lost my child.
Yeah.
And whether that child was 0 to 60.
Yeah.
So what can we do on days like these, where everybody's saying Happy Mother's Day, and you, as a person who has a child, again, quotation has, right? And also you experience this feeling, well, this is one of many that are my babies, right? And this is one of many that could have been my babies. And you have lost your mother. Yeah. So tell us how we can cope with that.
I always say it's so individual, because it depends on what your loss experience was, right? But regardless of the individuality of the circumstances surrounding that loss, there's still suffering and in pain. So there are so many variations to this, but a lot of people, especially in my group, will do things, anti-parenting things, like go do a wine tasting day, go on a trip with their loved one, or go, significant other, or go, find something that's extremely adult only to do. So for people who are experiencing infertility and stuff like that, where they haven't had kids yet, or they lost a child, doing something that's absolutely anti-parent is really helpful. Acknowledging that you can be super self-focused in that day, and turning off all social media is really important, because you do not know what's going to trigger you. Mm-hmm. Only touching base with the people who understand what you're going through, really important. Mm-hmm. And on this other side of the losing of our loved one, of our mothers, I really tried hard to bring my mother back to life in my heart. I try hard to think about those moments, like that same apple picking trip. My mom was like, I'll be right back. I'm just going to go down here. I want to get a couple Jonagolds. She comes back. I have an awesome picture of her. She comes back and her arms are filled with apples. And she gives me this look like It was so cute. Like, of course, that's her. Having those moments brought back to life are so important. But for the people, but more importantly, because I really think this is so important, it is, again, hard to, when you've lost the potential of a child and the loss are so strong that the hope is practically non-existent and collapsing in on itself because all you're struggling with is that pain and that loss. And this is really important to acknowledge. So many people, women, men, whoever you are, who cannot become a mother or who haven't become a mother yet, feel like they're biologically invalidated.
Mm.
So it is really important to revalidate you as a woman, as a person, whatever means you want to revalidate you, revalidate your place, your sexuality, the whatever you love of yourself. Revalidate all those parts of you. Pamper yourself. Do anything that feels like this feels too self-indulgent. It's not. As long as it's not hurting you or somebody else, it's not too self-indulgent. Nothing is too self-indulgent on this particular day when it comes to counteracting that pain and loss. Do what you need to do to make the most of you in this day.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. Thank you so much. We've had the most amazing conversation and we'll have you back. So put a 1 in the comments if you want your own back. And I will link all of the resources that she mentioned because she's awesome and she's going to give them to me. But I think that this conversation has been so healing, so powerful. And I'm really grateful for your wisdom and for your expertise, for the work that you're doing to advocate for women all over the world, and also for this time that you took to be with us today. I really appreciate it. And I appreciate you. Any last words of wisdom that you want to share?
Oh, I appreciate you so much. And I adore you. And I am so blessed to be here. And every day, in every way, just trying to be present in this moment, because this moment is honestly all we really have. We have our past that's informed who we are today, but really this moment is all we really get. So be with yourself presently, because I think it's the best present you can give yourself.
I love it. Thank you so much, Yorona. Thank you, Positive Moms, for tuning in and sending you a big healing hug and mwah, bake it.